Cambridge Insider Podcast time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cambridge Insider Podcast. We are in arrival season. I don't know if that's a thing, but that's what we're going to make it a thing. It's arrival season. I know that students are arriving on our shores as we speak every single day. I'm seeing notifications of new students. Somebody who has a lot more insight into that, my co-host, Leanna. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. I had my first two students arrive safe and sound last week, so I'm great. They flew into JFK Airport in New York City, and their flight was on time. Their luggage arrived, it didn't get lost. Their host was there to pick them up and brought bagged sandwiches and meals for them for the car ride home. So it went really smoothly, and I'm so happy about that. So I have more students arriving in the next couple weeks, so I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Stephen?
I'm also doing well. It's we're sort of heading towards the end of summer, although I believe that August is still very much in summer. So I'm not pleased when people are like, "Oh, it's August, it's almost the end." Like August is a big summer month. We still need to be in the summer
I
mood.
I totally agree. And my friends keep being like, "Oh, I'm ready for the fall. I'm ready for my pumpkin spice lattes." And I'm not ready for that whatsoever. It's the beginning of August in my book, and we still have lots of summer to go. I think
Yeah,
summer goes to like mid-September in my mind. So
good, good. I love the story about our hosts bringing like a little packed lunch for the students. Isn't that just if you're
really
gonna
sweet.
Yeah, if you're gonna sort of advertise and just give a little image of what Cambridge and our host community is all about, that would be it. I feel like that's so cool.
Totally. Yeah,
And
we have some
any
great host families in this area.
exactly, and any student that lands at JFK, that's a test of your will. So if they can make it through JFK, make it through immigration at JFK, they've done well. They're probably going to be
You
really
can you can make
successful.
it through anything.
Exactly. And then today we've got a really special guest, good friend of mine, been colleagues for a very long time. Um, uh, our first family education advisor that we've had on the show. Carmen, welcome to the Cambridge Insider Podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, Liana. So my
Hi.
hi. So my role is FEA, Family Education Advisor. So I joined Cambridge since 2014. So I was doing my PhD in cultural foundations of education. So I thought, oh, what a great opportunity to kind of put what I learned in test. Um, helping international students and their families. So being FEA, pretty much like bilingual. Staff. So we team up with SDMs, like great SDM Liana. Um, so give not every parent speak English, right? So pretty much FEA is like the ambassador, sort of provide the students progress, how they're doing with the host family, how they're doing life and learning in America with the natural parents. So I've been enjoying doing this work. Lots of challenges, but it's also very exciting.
Carmen, I only hear good feedback about you, so we're excited to have you on, on the podcast because I feel like every guest we have is a standout performer in their position. So it's good to have you on as the first family education advisor, just for all of our listeners. And I know sometimes we get carried away because we're all, part of the Cambridge Network family. So when we're talking about the SDMs, we are talking about the student development managers. Typically Liana's role, and when we are talking about the FEAs, those are the family education advisors. And I think, this sort of leads into my first question, Carmen, but I think there's been a little bit of confusion. There could be a little bit of confusion when people look at it from the outside, saying the FEA and the SDM, or the family education advisor and the student development manager, do a similar role. Could you maybe just sort of in very basic details to our school administrators listening, to maybe some of our students listening, what exactly does the family education advisor do? Also, how does that differ from what the student development manager does? I think that's a good way for us to start the conversation.
Sure, sure. So think about all the parties involved in the students' educational experience here in the US. So we have school, we have host family, student, and natural parents. So FEA kind of more focused on the communication between the SDM and the natural parents. That side of the uh, partnership, so to speak. And then SDM, because most of SDMs are local, and they focus on more the communication between host families and school and the students to make sure everything goes smoothly in that area. So the FEA really team up with SDM to have a full picture of how the students are doing academically, as well as success at school, or maybe they encounter any challenges or communication with the host family. Then relay that progress or challenges with the natural parents, and then team together to find a solution to help the students. So simply put, FEA more focused on communication with the natural parents, um, versus SDM are more focused on student, host family, and school. So we kind of have different emphasis, but we do keep very close communication about what's going on with the students and how we can all provide support.
Yeah, I think that you said it perfectly, Carmen. The student development manager and family education advisor really work as a team. And I consider my family education advisors that I work with to be experts in the cultural side of things for many of our parents and the language side of things. So, like you said, a lot of the natural parents don't speak any English. So, it's so important to have that teamwork and that foundation for support for natural parents to get school updates and updates on how their student is doing in their native language. And for many of our students, that language is Chinese. And so, our family education advisors are so important in that regard.
Um, and Carmen, you're based in Ohio.
Yes,
Do I
I'm
remember
based in
that correctly?
Cleveland. Yeah.
But I believe the majority of our family education advisors are based in a student's home country. So we have many FEAs that are based in China, some based in Korea, and some based in Vietnam. Is that correct?
Yes, majority of the FEA are China-based, so they're on the same in the same time zone with the natural parents. So communication-wise, not much a time difference. So there are several US-based FEAs. So we don't have time difference with our SDMs in the US. But rest assured, all the communication, like we're pretty much like on call and have a good communication with each other. So if there's any issues, SDM inform FA right away. And then if there's anything, everybody knows same time. But
Yeah.
FEA also like learn great deal from the SDMs about what's happening locally in the US, and then also share those accurate information with the natural parents in China. So not just report or be a messenger of students, but also um, kind of educate natural parents about what the learning style or what's actually going on in the community where their kids are living and studying.
That's so
Yeah.
incredibly. Sorry, Leanna, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I like to think of the student development managers as sort of like the eyes and ears on the ground. And then we report back to the family education advisors what's going on with the student and the school and everything. Um, and the family education advisors just have such a great way of communicating with natural parents to explain some of the differences that might be going on in classrooms here or communication with teachers, especially. And this leads me to my next question for Carmen, which is sort of what most commonly, what are the most common issues or feedback that you hear from natural parents that you communicate with them about to help provide a great experience for the student? I guess what are the most common conversations that you have with natural parents as the family education advisor?
I think most common also depends on how often the students communicate with their own natural parents. So for those students who does not communicate a lot, most common question I got is, how's the student's mood? The student's not responding. The kid is not like talking to me or reply to me. Like, is the student happy? Like, is everything okay? Um, so I get those questions quite a bit. So of course, ask question to SDM, and SDM, reach out to students and host family just to get an idea of, is too stressful with study, or, we're concerned about the students' well-being. So I get those questions a lot. And then the second most is about food. Is my kid like liking the food the host family prepares? Do they pack lunch? I think being natural parents, kind of concerned about those, details of life, things in that nature.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
I think that speaks volumes to the importance of the family education advisor, because imagine sending your student into a program without the family education advisor role. All those answers to those questions would be unknowns. So it's so nice that our natural parents do have somebody to contact to ask those small detail questions about how's my student's mood from day to day, or what are they eating for lunch. That's so special to be able to get that information.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I do want to make, I think it's important for our schools as well listening. We often, specifically executive producer Dean and myself often have to reach out to schools. We talk about localizing your marketing, information that you're sending through. So making sure that it's in the right language, that it can be easily understood by your clientele, by your families, your agents abroad. And I think communication is in exactly the same grouping there. And what we've done at Cambridge is make sure that we have a position, family education advisor, available to parents that can localize that communication. So not only speak in their time zones at the right time, speak in their mother tongue, but also be able to educate them on some of the cultural differences. Because I think that was an issue that we ran into a lot at Cambridge, would be natural parents not necessarily understanding what was happening in the US, and therefore not being able to either back us up at Cambridge, or also not being able to do their part in helping the student overcome challenges. Carmen mentioned that she often has to educate these parents, and that's great because it shows that there is a little bit of that cultural gap, which is completely understandable. Just like when we go over to China on these trips, there's a lot that I need to be educated on. And Carmen's able to fulfill that role. And I think that's really, really important. And it helps us to, again, work as a team to make sure that we can, put our students first, which I think is really important.
Okay.
Carmen, any sort of final thoughts from your side? I think it's very easy to see the importance of this role. I'm incredibly proud of what Cambridge has done in terms of creating this role, because I knew a couple of years back we didn't have this role. We identified that there was certainly a gap. We had a lot of feedback about parents being frustrated, and we were able to create this role. And I know since we've created this role, the ease of communication has been of a very high standard. We've received incredible feedback from agents and parents that have said, thank you for creating the FEA role. Thank you for putting these people as part of the process, because it helps us out. Any sort of final thoughts from your side with regards to the family education advisor role, maybe where it could go in the future? Just something that you want to share with our listeners?
I think for FEAs, it's ongoing learning process as well. But as we have been provide this service for years now, it gets better and better. For as FEAs, we also get to know more and in details about how American education system go. We are able to provide more detailed and targeted service and education to the natural parents. So I would say we are going to continue doing our best work and work closely with the SDM to provide, timely progress of the students, and continue to provide accurate information and value-added service to our natural parents.
Absolutely. Well said. Leanna, any final questions for Carmen? She's a wealth of knowledge. Any final things that you want to ask her? Otherwise, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I would just like to add that Carmen is one of the most experienced, detail-oriented, and supportive family education advisors that I work with. She is an amazing support to our natural parents, and amazing partner to work with to give our students and whole family a wonderful international education experience at Cambridge Network. But I think really for our listeners, learning about the family education advisor role is just that the biggest takeaway is that every player in the Cambridge Network community, the student, natural parent, school, host, everyone is matched and connected with a really strong support system. So our students have the student development manager, our hosts have the student development manager, and then our natural parents have the family education advisor. And together we create this system that supports one another really well and educates one another, and in the end creates a wonderful experience for our students. So I'm so happy that our listeners are able to kind of learn another one of the players who are a part of this puzzle. to Cambridge Network. And thank you so much for being here, Carmen. We know it was last minute and you did a wonderful job sort of explaining the role and giving our listeners an inside look to how our natural parents are supported.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. As always, to all of our listeners, thank you. I think we've all learned a great deal. Students and schools, if you don't have an FEA, if you don't have a family education advisor, you're probably with the wrong company. You probably should seek out Cambridge Network, because we have a family education advisor. We have somebody that can help with that communication. It's so important. As always, we're leading the industry, we're leading the field, we're innovating in everything that we do. We're here to support our students. They're ultimately the reason why we are here. To all of our listeners, remember to like, listen, subscribe, do all of those good things on the podcast. Send Leanna a question. She wants to answer it live on air.
Yes, we want to do a Q&A. Send us some
questions.
questions.
There we go. Until our next episode, we'll catch you around. Bye-bye, everybody.